It's the middle of the night. You half wake for no reason. Your eyes crack open in the dark, and there, in the corner of the room, is a face. A figure. Someone standing perfectly still, watching you. Your heart slams. You don't move. You stare at it, and it stares back. And then, slowly, your eyes adjust, and the figure resolves into what it actually is. A coat thrown over a chair, a stack of laundry, a shadow. There was never anyone there, but for those few seconds, you didn't see a coat. You saw a person. You saw a face. So what just happened? Why does your brain in the dark take a pile of clothes and build a human being out of it? Why are you so wired to see faces that you'll conjure one out of nothing at all? This is one of the most common experiences a human can have, and it has a name. It's called pareidolia, the tendency to see faces and patterns in random, meaningless things. And once you start noticing it, you realize it's everywhere, not just in the dark. It's the man in the moon. It's the face on the front of a car, 2 headlight eyes and a grill for a mouth. It's the shapes in the clouds, the figure in the wood grain of a door, the face people swear they see burnt into a piece of toast. Your brain is a relentless face-finding machine. And tonight, alone in the dark, it turned that machine on a coat and found a person. And it turns out this isn't a flaw or a glitch. It's one of the most finely tuned, deliberately oversensitive systems your brain has. So let me show you what's actually happening when you see a face in the dark. By the end, you'll understand the dedicated face hardware built into your brain, the reason it's wired to cry wolf, why darkness specifically sends it into overdrive, and why the faces you see at night are so often frightening instead of friendly. Let's start with the hardware, because your brain takes faces more seriously than almost anything else it looks at. Buried in the bottom of your brain, in a region of the temporal lobe, there's a patch of tissue that does essentially one job. It detects faces. Scientists call it the fusiform face area. When you look at a face, any face, this region lights up. And here is the key thing about it. It is wildly, almost comically eager. It doesn't need a real, detailed human face to fire. It just needs the rough idea of one. 2 dots side by side with a line underneath. That's it. That minimal little arrangement, 2 eyes and a mouth, is enough to trip the system. Which is exactly why you see faces in electrical outlets, in the headlights of a car, in 3 random marks on a wall. Your face detector is set to such a low bar that almost any blob with 2 dots near the top gets flagged as, that's a face. And this happens fast, shockingly fast. Your brain detects and responds to face-like patterns in roughly a 1/10 of a second, faster than you can consciously think, faster than you can decide to look. By the time you're aware you're seeing something, the face detector has already fired and already sounded the alarm. You don't choose to see the face in the dark. The seeing happens first, and the thinking, the part of you that eventually realizes it's just a coat, comes lagging along behind. So your brain has this dedicated hair-trigger face detection system. And the obvious question is, why? Why would evolution build a face detector so sensitive that it constantly sees faces that aren't there? Wouldn't a more accurate system be better, one that only fires for real faces? And the answer is one of the most important ideas in all of psychology, and it comes down to a simple, brutal piece of math. Think about the 2 ways your face detector can be wrong. It can fail to spot a real face that's actually there, or it can spot a face when there's nothing there at all. Now picture you're an early human, alone, in the dark, in a dangerous world. What's the cost of each mistake? If you see a face that isn't there, a shadow you mistake for a stranger, the cost is basically nothing. You get startled for a second, you feel a little foolish, and you move on. But if you fail to see a face that is there, a predator in the grass, an enemy in the trees, the cost could be your life. Those 2 errors are not equal. One is mildly embarrassing, the other is fatal. So evolution made a choice for you, long before you were born. When the stakes are that lopsided, the smartest strategy is to err massively toward false alarms. Build a detector that screams, face, at every ambiguous shadow, because 1,000 false alarms are a price worth paying to never ever miss the one that's real. This is sometimes called the smoke detector principle. A smoke detector that goes off when you make toast is annoying, but you keep it sensitive on purpose, because a detector that only fires when the whole house is already in flames is useless. Your face detector is that smoke alarm cranked all the way up. It would rather show you 100 faces in the dark that aren't there than let you walk past the one that is. So now we understand the machine and why it's so jumpy. But that still leaves the heart of the mystery. Why the dark? You don't usually hallucinate faces in a bright room. Why does darkness, specifically, turn this system loose? To answer that, you have to throw out the most basic assumption you have about how seeing works. You probably think of your eyes like a camera, just passively recording whatever light comes in, and your brain just receiving that picture. But that's not what happens at all. Your brain is not a passive camera. It's an active prediction machine. At every moment, your brain is making its best guess about what's out there, building a model of the world, and then using your eyes mostly to check and correct that guess. What you experience as seeing is not raw light hitting your eyes. It's your brain's prediction of the world, fact-checked against whatever light is available. And this is the whole key. In good light, there's tons of visual information pouring in. That flood of detail keeps your brain's predictions honest. If your brain guesses person, but the eyes deliver crisp data saying coat, the data wins instantly and you just see a coat. But in the dark, that stream of correcting information dries up. There's almost no detail coming in, just vague shapes and gradients of black. And when the sensory data goes quiet, your brain's predictions are left to run the show almost unchecked. With nothing to correct it, your brain fills the darkness with its best guess. And the thing your face detector is always guessing is face. So in the dark, the part of perception that comes from the outside world shrinks, and the part that comes from inside your own head takes over. You're not really seeing the corner of your room. You're seeing your brain's prediction of the corner of your room, and it has populated it with a face. This is why the same coat that is obviously boringly a coat in the daylight transforms into a watching figure at 3 a.m. Nothing about the coat changed. What changed is the balance of power inside your visual system. In the light, reality was in charge. In the dark, your brain's expectations took over, and your expectations are run by a face detector that never stops hunting. But there's one more piece, and it explains the most unsettling part of all. Because the faces you see in the dark aren't neutral. You don't wake up at night and see a cheerful, smiling face in the corner. You see something menacing. A figure. A watcher. A threat. Why are the faces of the dark almost always frightening? This is where fear loops back into the system and turns the dial up. Remember, your brain's perception is a prediction, and predictions are shaped by context and expectation. And what is the context of being alone in the dark? Vulnerability, threat. Your threat detection systems are already primed, already running hot, already braced for danger, because darkness is exactly the situation our ancestors were most at risk in. So when your face detector reaches into the shadows to make its guess, it isn't guessing in a neutral mood. It's guessing while afraid. And a frightened brain doesn't predict friendly faces. It predicts the thing it's scared of. The prediction gets pulled toward the threat. So you don't just see a face, you see a hostile one. A figure that is watching you, that means you harm. Because that is the possibility your fear has told the system to watch out for. And it becomes a vicious little loop. You glimpse the figure, your fear spikes, and that spike of fear makes your brain predict even more threat, which makes the figure seem even more real and more menacing, which spikes your fear again. The more frightened you get, the more convincing the phantom becomes. It's the same reason these experiences are so much worse when you're already anxious, or when you've just watched something scary, or when you're a child whose threat systems are even more easily triggered. The face in the dark feeds on the fear that it creates. So put the whole thing together, and the spooky experience turns into something almost beautiful. You wake in the dark and see a watching figure in the corner. What's actually happening is this. You have a dedicated patch of brain whose entire job is to find faces, and it's deliberately tuned to be oversensitive, set off by the faintest hint of two eyes and a mouth, because for your ancestors, missing a real face could mean death. That detector runs on prediction, not raw vision. And in the dark, starved of real information, its predictions run wild and fill the empty space with the thing it's built to find. And because you're afraid, those predictions get bent toward menace, conjuring not just a face but an enemy. Every piece of that is your brain working exactly as designed. It's not broken. It's not haunted. It's protecting you the only way 500,000 years of evolution taught it how. So the next time you jolt awake and find a figure standing in the corner of your room, watching you in the dark, take a breath before the panic takes over. There's no one there. What you're looking at is your own brain, doing one of the most human things it does. Taking a world too dark to see clearly and refusing to leave it empty. Filling the shadows with faces just in case, because for the creatures we came from, a face that wasn't there was a harmless mistake. But a face you failed to see could be the last one you ever missed, and so you are built, right down to the wiring, to always choose the face.